You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch UK Radio.
Hello everyone, and a very good Wednesday evening to you all. It's Penny G. Morgan here of Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio UK, bringing you the history and the paranormal around the world. Your historical haunted hostess, with some may say the mostess. So, last week we visited the ominous Cecil Hotel with my very special guest, Mr. Christopher St. Booth. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that particular show, don't worry, you haven't missed the boat. You can still go and have a listen. In fact, you can go and play it and download it at any time. If you go via our website, Spreaker, amongst other things, YouTube, there's quite a few places where you can go and have a listen. I did hear from someone last week about the Cecil. Apparently she lived there for about a month in 2007. And she said that it was genuinely an incredibly eerie place to be. She said she lived on the 10th floor for that month and kept hearing furniture moving around in the room opposite across the corridor. After a while, she got so fed up with the constant noise that she called down to reception to complain, to be told that the room in question was empty and had been for a very long time. Apparently they even opened up the room to prove it, and there was no one in there. So it's obvious the place has an awful lot of residual energy going on there. But thank you ever so much to Third Sight Paranormal Events for sharing that one with us. Third Sight, interestingly, are actually based in Coventry Way. So if you want to chat to someone about the Cecil Hotel who's been there, give Third Sight Paranormal Events a quick call. So, where are we today? Well, I thought I would bring us back across the pond and head north of Watford for today's show. I say north of Watford, I'm based in Essex, so Watford is pretty north for me. Although some of the historical information I'm going to be talking to does actually relate to the whole of the UK, including Ireland, Northern Ireland. Well, we're going to be visiting a place called Ripon Workhouse in North Yorkshire. And after the break, I'm going to be joined by Rosie and Stuart of Simply Ghost Nights, who are the resident paranormal investigation team at said workhouse. They will have some very interesting experiences to tell us, as they actually visited there last week. They're there on a monthly basis. There's so much information that we could go through when discussing workhouses in general that I feel that maybe a brief summary of how this dreaded place came into being, well, I feel it might be useful to go through some of it. Obviously nowadays we have the welfare state. Poverty shouldn't exist in the way that it did. But the thing is with poverty, you can look at it as in comparison of what's actually going on in the rest of society. So it used to be that if you didn't have a washing machine, you could be classed as being poor. Now there's other things that might class you as being, I suppose, on the lower rungs, as they would say. But the poor law legislations can be traced back as far as the early 1500s, with what became known as the Old Poor Law under Elizabeth I. And then the New Poor Law, which was passed in 1834. This actually wasn't the earliest type of statute to try and control the poor. This could be traced back even further to the mid-1300s under Edward III. After an estimated 30 to 40% of people had died from the Black Death, this required everyone to work. There was so much competition for workers amongst the employers that the wages had been driven up, which meant the prices for goods which had been driven up, and people were struggling to live. There was actually subsequent acts that followed that punished workers for fleeing and becoming freemen. But tied workers and everything is a whole different subject and is a whole other historical area in itself. Remember, monasteries were also there to give alms to the poor, but after the dissolution of the monasteries with the Reformation in the Tudor times, poor relief became an actual compulsory tax collected at parish level. This was actually only intended for who were known as the impotent poor. Those were people who were elderly, infirm, or couldn't work for some reason. The able-bodied, those who begged, and those who could otherwise work were expected to, and could receive quite harsh punishments if they did not. I found stories of beggars being hung for repeated begging offences. The workhouse movement, as we've come to know it, probably commenced properly really at the end of the 17th century, so the very late 1600s. But this was actually parish-based, and therefore it was run in quite a haphazard way. The original idea being that the parish could earn money from the residents of these places. However, with the vast majority either being elderly, infirm, or children who weren't going to be profitable, this idea quickly proved to be worthless. Then we come to the Victorian age. Yes, I know I'm jumping around my centuries quite a bit, but I'm sure you don't want to hear about all the intricate details. This is the workhouse age we are probably most familiar with, thanks to authors such as Charles Dickens. Because following a royal commission into the poor laws, they proposed two overarching principles that A, the pauper should have to enter the workhouse with conditions worse than that of the poorest free labourer outside of the workhouse, and that relief should only be available in the workhouse, i.e. nothing would be given to people who didn't come into the workhouse. That was the method of control of the poor relief. The final act, in 1834, was watered down slightly with these two principles, with outdoor alms still continuing to be given. But a major change in this period was the removal of the parish-run workhouses and a switch to what became known as poor law unions. Previously, it's believed that there was almost 2,000 parish workhouses being run. Something like 1 in 7 parishes had a workhouse of varying sizes. After the unions were formed, the workhouses were in the hundreds rather than thousands. But don't be fooled into thinking this meant less poor. It was still a similar kind of amount, a similar percentage, but they were housed on a much, much larger scale. Whether you knew back then, I'm sure none of you lived back then. If you did, that's a pretty neat trick. But whether you knew the local workhouse as the Bastille or the Spike or the Workus or simply the house, it was a cause of dread and shame for many people who had to go into them. It was seen as the last resort, and this was exactly what the authorities intended. It wasn't meant to encourage people not to work. It wasn't meant to be seen as your choice was you either work or you go in the workhouse. It was meant to be foreboding. It was meant to be intimidating. But for some, there was absolutely no choice. You look at any of the workhouses built during the Victorian era and you'll notice similarities in their designs. You can get quite adept when driving round, spotting buildings, and when looking up finding out a lot were workhouses in a former life. Or maybe that's just me, maybe I am just a historical nerd that I get quite excited when I spot a new one and find out it was actually a workhouse. A lot of hospitals were primarily workhouses with a very small infirmary unit, for example. The late St John's Hospital in Chelmsford was one such place. There are certain features that the newer workhouses had and were architecturally designed to have. A large gate which you had to walk through to get to the administration block, for example. The entrance to the Birmingham Union House was through what they called and became known as the Archway of Tears. You would be expected to be interviewed, establish your circumstances, so the shame of the reason that you were there would be exposed, once again, for all to see and hear. You could be an unmarried mother to whose family had thrown her out in shame. You could be elderly and unable to keep a roof over your head. Remember, there was no welfare state. You could be a husband who had lost his job and had to take his whole family to the workhouse to keep them safe. There were quite strict rules regarding families, in that if a husband was going into the workhouse, if he had a family, they had to come too, and similarly he couldn't leave without them. If he wanted to be discharged, he had to take his entire family with him. But you've taken that family in, and you know that you're going to be split up. So, welcome back everyone. Thanks for joining us after that little quick break. I hope you managed to get yourself a tea or a coffee or whatever it is you were looking to get. I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Rosie and Stuart of Simply Ghost Nights, who are a group of paranormal investigators who cover all over the country, but luckily for them, and I'm very jealous, they have the residency at Ripon Workhouse, so it's somewhere that they know very, very well. Hi Rosie, hi Stuart.
Hi Penny.
Hi Penny.
Hi. Can I ask first how you guys got into the paranormal investigating side?
Yes, well, a long time ago, many moons ago, I actually asked Stuart if he would come along with me on a paranormal night. Mm-hmm. I was a big fan of Most Haunted, and at the time, one of the stars of Most Haunted, Phil Wyman, he had a company and he did ghost hunts. And I talked Stuart, after a lot of begging and pleading, into coming on one with me.
Right.
And we went along to the Golden Fleece in York. Mm-hmm. And there was so much happened that night that we just both come away in awe of it. Came home, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop talking about it, and just decided, right, when's the next one? And we did go on probably about 3 more before then deciding this is for us, this is what we want to do. So we joined a paranormal group.
Right. And that's the same for yourself, Stuart, then that's how you got into it as well.
Yeah, basically Rosie dragged me to the Golden Fleece for his wedding anniversary. And
my kind of couple.
yeah. And from then on it's been a passion, really. As Rosie said, the Golden Fleece, we had some really, really good activity.
Yeah.
The one after that weren't as good, I'll be honest, which was Peterborough Museum, and then went to another location which weren't as good again. But then, little bits and bobs happened we joined an amateur group, mm-hmm. and we went all over Yorkshire investigating, and took it from there, really, didn't we?
Yeah. Then eventually we just decided to build our own company, and we've built it from scratch.
Because you do a lot of events. People can check you out on your website, simplyghostnights.co.uk. It's co.uk, yeah, and your Facebook page as well. And I know that you do have an awful lot of events on there, which is great, and they seem to be sold out quite quickly, and you've got an awful lot of likes on your Facebook page as well, which is brilliant. I think with venues, when people say they've come away and it wasn't very good, because you can't guarantee the activity on a night, can you? You can't guarantee that something is going to happen. You can go there one day and it's nothing, and the next day you go back and it's ridiculous, sort of thing. So
one of the things we find very hard, because when you're taking £39, £49, sometimes £55 off people to come on these events, and you would love to do them for free, but unfortunately the locations don't let you go for free.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're praying at the beginning of the night, I hope there's some activity, you know what I mean? 'Cause I don't want these people to go home and think that they've just wasted all that money. And, you know, usually it does work out. You might get not much, but it seems to be enough. And that's the paranormal for you.
It is. I think a lot of people as well are coming. It's only the. I think there's not that many. I'm trying to think how to word this. There's not that many people now that go on a paranormal investigation and expect to see a full-bodied apparition standing there having a full-blown conversation with them anymore. You know, people can appreciate the sort of more subtle variances and all of that sort of thing as the knowledge expands. But what kind of equipment do you take with you when you go to somewhere like Ripon?
We have a whole vast amount of equipment. We have our Old Faithful tables, which are, you know, they have Ouija boards built into them. We take a lot of electrical equipment. We take the K2 meters, REM pods. We take night vision goggles, sound enhancements. We have
spirit boxes.
Yeah.
We have Ovulus, we have REM meters, we even have toys. We have toys for the children to play with as well.
And we go old school as well with trigger objects, crystals and rods, keys, coins, all kinds of manner things to try and investigate and get spirit to communicate with us, really.
Wonderful.
But you know, Penny, I get no bigger buzz than using your senses, to be honest with you. Sitting in a room, calling out, getting taps coming back, that gives me the biggest buzz.
Yeah. Well, I was actually, last week we were chatting with Christopher St. Booth about the Cecil Hotel, and he said all the equipment's great. He said, but there's nothing better than yourself. There's nothing better than when you do feel the hairs on your arm go up and you get that electric charge and there's no reason for it, or you know, suddenly the temperature just drops on one side and the other side's still completely normal and you can feel it. And I think the equipment's great to use, and
it'll always be at the back of your mind. Is it just coincidental? Whereas when you've got a personal experience, it's something different.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are actually making me really want to come on an investigation. I'm trying to think, when can I come up to Yorkshire next? When can I get a weekend away?
Well, we're there every month.
Well, I think we should really start talking about Ripon Workhouse. I as I was telling you guys on Facebook, I have been there as a sort of tourist during the day, and because I'm very into my history. Workhouses fascinate me, and in all honesty, there's not many left in the UK that you can actually visit. Obviously, a lot of them have been knocked down or converted into flats or offices or whatever, and you can see them because you can tell what they are just by looking at the outside, but you can't actually go in and sort of find out the nuances of the building.
The history's all gone, isn't it? When they start knocking them about and modernising them.
That's right. I mean, I know that you've got, I think there's one in Nottingham, isn't there? Or Nottingham Way. You've got Gresson Hall in Norfolk, which is a brilliant one.
Yes, we've been there too.
Have you investigated there?
Yes, had an amazing night there, to be honest with you, Penny.
Really? I haven't investigated. I've been there as a sort of a tourist, but I haven't actually got on an investigation there yet. It is somewhere I want to go, because as a tourist I had a weird experience there that my mum, who isn't very she's a cynic, but she will sort of listen when I tell her stuff, and my experience there, I was talking about myself, sorry, but my experience there was a stone staircase, very worn, like very shabby looking stone staircase, and I can't remember why, but I just leant forward and put my hand on it, and I suddenly got a vision of a woman falling down the stairs, and I said, Mum, I think that's the women's dorm up there. And she went, don't be daft, what makes you say that? And I told her, there's no signs, it's no entry, you couldn't go up it. And so she grabbed one of I think the curator or something. He says, what was up those stairs? And he said, the women's dorm. And she said, did a woman die? And he went, how do you know? I don't know where it came from. I
think I know which staircase you're talking about as well.
Yeah, but it was just the fact I just leant over and put my hand on the stair, and I just sort of saw women in my head. That was the only way I can explain it, and a woman falling quite badly down the stairs and not moving. Yeah, but it is.
We lived a lot closer to Gresson Hall because we do like that one.
Well, if you do a Gresson Hall one, make sure you let me know.
I will do.
I can get to Norfolk easily because my parents live there, so that would definitely be one I'd like to do. But back to Ripon. Yes, I was lucky enough that when I was on holiday in Yorkshire a couple of years ago, I'd sort of said to my husband, I want to go to the workhouse because he knows I like workhouses, so and museums and everything. And I literally waited outside until the doors opened, so I was one of the first people in.
Right.
So there was nobody else walking around when I was there. It was just me and the staff, basically, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
I didn't find it felt that some of the workhouses I've walked past feel quite ominous. They feel quite like they've got a kind of darkness about them.
Foreboding, yeah.
I didn't feel that at Ripon.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's parts of it does feel a little bit dark and foreboding, and there's other parts doesn't. But at night time it has a completely different feel again.
I'll bet. So what sort of part of the history of Ripon do you tend to tell your guests about? What are some of the sort of the historical things that you tell them about Ripon Workhouse?
We give them a rundown on when the workhouse, how long it's been stood there, how many inmates they would have had originally, what their daytime duties would have included, when it actually ceased to be a workhouse, what became of the people who were left. You know, we tend to try and fit as much as we can in, but we don't want to give too much away because we like them to go in with a clean slate, fresh mind, and not dwell on what we've given them to work on. I want them to get their own, you know, their own investigation and come out with names and dates and periods for us to check out for them. Yeah.
So, I'm going to actually ask you for a few spoilers now. You know, how many inmates would the workhouse have had?
Originally, it had 33 inmates, which consisted of 11 men, 11 boys, 9 women, and 2 girls.
Right. So it's quite a small workhouse then, as workhouses.
Well, it was then, but it grew and grew.
Right. The thing that always sort of amazes me about the workhouse is kind of how sparse it was, but then again, it was designed that it was your absolute last resort. You would never actually choose to go there as opposed to stay on trying to find a job. It was you know, you had absolutely no other choice other than to go into the workhouse. What sort of experiences have you or your clients had which would kind of give an idea of that kind of desperation, of that sort of, do you get what I'm saying? That kind of the people who really didn't have any other choice.
Being perfectly honest, the spirits that we've had communication with over the years, they all seem to come through in good spirits. Pardon the pun. They do seem to come through in good spirits. They seem to be, you know, happy to talk to us, tell us, yes, they were desperate, yes, they were sad, but they all tell us that it wasn't actually that bad. That, you know, when they stayed there, they were treated really well. Yeah. So, you know, it probably was bad nowadays, what we would compare it against. But in them days, you know, I don't think they considered it so bad that it was as bad as what we think it was.
I suppose compared to living in a ditch or a field, the workhouse were quite comforting, really, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is something I do try and get over to people, that yes, compared to modern day now, the workhouse is absolutely abhorrent. But if your only other choice was either to possibly take your own life because there was nothing, or I mean, people lived in stairwells. Whole families would live in a stairwell because they had no money. Going into something like the workhouse, yes, you were robbed of your dignity. Yes, you had to take weekly baths in front of people, like be supervised. Yes, you had to wear a uniform, but you did have some kind of sustenance. You had a reason for being. You had the work to do. And you had a roof over your head.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me as well is when you look at the photographs that they all, you know, many photographs about, and they all look happy in the photographs. So, you know, it probably wasn't as bad as what we nowadays like to think it was.
But that would tally in with the feeling I got in Ripon, that I didn't get a feeling of, whereas some of the more old-fashioned sort of the spikes, as they were also known in London, some of those buildings, when you walk past them, you shudder. And that's without even going in, whereas I think those ones possibly were a bit more, some of the things that went on there probably were a bit less.
I think a lot would depend on the actual governors of the workhouse. You would have had some that were absolutely, bullies and they were there to work full stop, and then you might have others that were more compassionate towards them. Yeah. And I do think Ripon was one of those more compassionate ones.
Yeah, that's definitely the vibe I've got from there when I visited. So it's interesting that you're saying that as well. Now, some of my listeners, they want a good ghost story. Can you give them quite an exciting experience that you've had there that did make everyone sit back and go, whoa, that was a good one?
We've actually had a couple. I'll tell you a couple of quick ones.
Go on.
We were in the backyard, and there's a coffin in the backyard. It's basically there to show you that people who went into the workhouse usually came out in a coffin. Mm-hmm. Now, this coffin's more for show, really. It's just there, sat on a cart, like a horse would have just fastened up to the cart and off it went. Mm-hmm. Now, we started very recently, probably a year ago, just going out into the yard and placing our hands on the coffin just to see if we could get some tapping on the coffin, as an extra place to investigate. Mm-hmm. And we were all shocked. The whole group was shocked when every tap we did, we were getting back from inside the coffin. We then started scratching on the coffin. We were getting the scratching coming back. And we also then in the end give one really big knock on the coffin, and we got a really big knock back from inside the coffin.
Wow.
Everybody absolutely loved that vigil, and we do it every time now, and I would say 8 times out of 10 we've had the same response every time we use it now.
And have you had anything come through, spirit telling you they're doing it because they're waiting for you to come and see them?
There was a couple who was doing a little experiment in the room just adjacent to it, which is now the morgue. It's not the actual original morgue, but they located the morgue into this room when they were pulling it down so they could save all, the insides of the morgue. And they said that they got a message through from a little girl claiming it was a little girl who was out there knocking on the coffin for us.
Oh, and it happens every time now that you go?
Yeah.
Wow.
And only recently, Penny, in November, I had a group in the boardroom doing Ouija board, and we record most vigils with camcorders, and I was just particularly using my phone this time, and got the glass going, showed yes and no because the spirit they picked up on couldn't read and write, and they said, "Do you like us being here?" Now, around on the table, I had a K2 sound a lady with some sound enhancers on. There was motion sensors around the room as well, so we were all kitted out. So the lady says, "Do you like us being here?" The glass went to no, and the woman with the guest with the sound enhancers went, "I've just heard go away." So I took a note of the time. The following night, at my desk, going through all the footage and everything, come across that little experiment going on with the Ouija board there, and clear as bell you hear, "Do you like us being here?" And you hear, "Go away, go away." You go away twice, really, really faint. Then the lady with the sound enhancers goes, "I've just heard go away." And it's on our YouTube and Facebook sites, isn't it, that one?
And which room was this in?
The boardroom.
The boardroom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So it could even have been one of the governors telling you to go away.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That's what we think, yeah.
We always get the impression the governors are not happy that we're sitting in the boardroom.
It's a feeling of authority up there, to be quite honest. You always get that feeling of authority. And another activity we get there is through the spirit box. There is a regular spirit comes through called Stan, and he'll just give every swear word imaginable out. Now, it's not one of them where it could sound like it. Penny, it literally does sound like every swear word.
There's no question.
Yeah,
I want to meet Stan.
He's even in one vigil, he C-bombed a guest,
Oh,
and then we all went, what did he just say? And it just spelt it out. See, and the rest of it. And
so if he was a pauper in the workhouse, he was a literate pauper because he could spell his own swear words.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, oh, good for him.
He just said him from the spirit box.
Yeah, he did claim to be a vagrant
and a thief, but
right.
a poor thief. But that was through the spirit box. That's just one of many instances, isn't it? We have there. We've also had again in the nurse, what we call the nurses' room there, had a group doing I think it was just a Victorian seance basically. And we all heard footsteps coming from the adjoining room, which is only a metre away. There's no door there. We just thought, someone's downstairs or a guest, and there were nobody there. And we had a guest doing some recording in one of the far rooms, and they've heard. I think they were tapping on the wall and were getting it back as well. That's recorded. They literally had frights on it, ran back to the room screaming.
But if you're interested, Penny, Friday night you'll see Ripon Workhouse on Most Haunted.
Oh, is it this Friday? It's on Most Haunted.
It is, yes.
Ah, I'll be honest. I don't actually watch Most Haunted that much because I do end up yelling at the television quite a bit.
Yes, I don't watch it, but it's a good way to see around the building. And
I did Drakelow Tunnels last year, and I did watch the Most Haunted one on it after I'd done it, and I disagreed with the way it was described and everything, but hey ho. But I might watch that if I'm around on Friday, because it's the history side I enjoy in a lot of these paranormal programs. It is the sort of talking about the place that a lot of people will never get to see because they don't allow paranormal investigations in there on a general basis. What's been your most unnerving experience at Ripon?
Ripon was definitely the coffin for me, because there was definitely. I mean, as an investigator myself, and I've been doing it a long, long time, every single week. Everything that happens, you try to put a rational explanation on things in your own mind, even if the guests, they think it's everything, a ghost, and you're always looking for that. No, it'll be this or it'll be that.
That's being an investigator, though, isn't it? You can't always accept the first thing. You have to look at all the options. This coffin, all I kept telling myself was, I cannot explain how these knocks are coming from inside an empty coffin. It's just, I just can't get over everything we asked for. We were getting it repeated. It actually happened again when we were there last Friday. A whole group of customers were there. They all witnessed it, and even one guy stood up. He says, we've been on numerous locations with other companies, but I have never ever witnessed anything that's made me, I won't say what he said, but made him believe. And he says that is the only thing that's ever made him truly believe there's something there. Yeah, everyone's a cynic until something happens, and then and all of a sudden they believe in it. But like you say, you have to look at could it have been this, could it have been that, try and debunk it, and if you can't, it could be paranormal because you can't find a logical explanation.
You just have to be true to yourself, don't you, as well, and the guest as well. You have to try and debunk it. Yeah. And then you can just say, well, if you tried every avenue, then it's flummox you then, doesn't it?
It does. What about you, Stuart? What's been your most unnerving experience?
I would say I've got two actually on a par. One was the spirit box when we had the go away. When I played it, the time at the actual moment I played it back. That was like a tingling sensation, and I thought, well, this is gold. It was like, Rosie, listen to this. And Rosie was like, wow, he couldn't believe it when you heard, go away. And the second one would be in the nurses' room, where when you can tell the group's got really good energies. The energies in a group's fantastic. It was a group of guests. They were stood around the table. I've gone to stand up. We've been sat down for a bit. And gone to put their hands... Link the little fingers up, and they got their hands about 2 or 3 inches above the table. Nobody was touching it. The feet were well away, and we said, "Come on, please move the table." Asked the spirits to move the table, and it moved with nobody touching it. It only moved about 2 inches. It kind of jumped. We had torches on, me and another team leader, and we knew categorically no one was touching it. Everyone's fingers was in the hair, and that were amazing as well, Penny, to be honest.
Well, the amount of energy that it must have taken just to move it 2 inches or whatever, that's phenomenal. Wow. I've
seen tables move a few times at other locations, but that was the one at Ripon were amazing as well.
Yeah. So which is, I don't know, it'll be the same answer for both of you, which is your favourite bit of the workhouse to be in? That you actually feel almost quite at home there, like the spirits that are around you are friends, because you've been doing it so long.
Not so much the part what's the most haunted, but the part where you feel the most comfortable, where you could even sleep if you wanted to.
Yeah, so you feel at home. Yeah.
The nurses'
room, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I find upstairs in the boardroom, it's a different energy altogether. It's a more authoritarian energy.
Uh-huh.
When you walk in, you know it's like, oh, I shouldn't be in here, because they've only got up there, to give the names, hand over any items they had, and then down into nurses' quarter to be stripped off and deloused and enter the workhouse.
Yeah. So both of you like the nurses' quarters, the nurses' sort of office bit the best. Oh, right.
Yeah. But there is a bit of very exciting news, actually. The workhouse have just now purchased the huge part of the workhouse behind as well.
Really? Was it the council using it or something?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
They've finally got it. And fingers crossed, from the end of this month, we'll be doing our events from in there.
As well.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, so it's a whole new ball game even for us.
Do we know what that building would have been used for?
It was the governor's house, as well as all the where the men and the women, when it grew in size, all the dorms where they would have all slept. The only people that actually slept in the part where you would have visited were the vagrants.
Yeah.
The inmates all slept in the bigger part at the back.
Right. Oh, that's exciting. That is exciting.
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're really, really, so excited ourselves about that. It's like Christmas come at once.
Well, I know we must be paranormal history nerds to be excited about that, but I'm excited about that. Well, maybe I'll wait until after the summer holidays to book my Ripon journey, and then you guys will have got I'll be able to come in there with you as well. I'm thinking, I am actually picturing my diary in my head right now, thinking, right, when can I leave the kids with my in-laws so that I can come up north? You mentioned the vagrants.
Yeah.
That was one of the areas I found a bit unnerving, if I'm honest, when I walked through there. And I know I told you guys about this on Facebook, but when I walk through there's a door that you walk through at the end, isn't there, that I think takes you out into the yard, if I remember
that's
rightly.
The morgue. You would have walked through the morgue into the yard.
Yeah, but there was a door at the end of kind of the vagrant bit that when I went that I had to walk through, and I'd gone through the vagrant bit, I'd gone into a couple of cells, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Did you go right down to the very last bottom cell?
Yes. And
that would have been, that's the morgue. That is the morgue now.
Okay.
And then you go through that morgue out into the yard.
Yeah, well, the door, the woman who'd let me in, because obviously I'd been waiting to come in as soon as they opened the doors, she said, everything's unlocked, you can just walk about, just do what you want, there's nobody else here, just amuse yourself, which I love it when people say that to me, because then I can just... My husband was off with the kids, buying them ice creams and stuff, so I had the whole place to myself. It was wonderful. And I'd finished looking in these cells, and I was feeling a bit... like someone was watching. I did feel like I was being watched, and not just in a nice way either, almost like leered at. That was
probably Stan.
Oh, is that Stan? Okay. I'd have given him a run for his money with swear words, though. I'm an ex-rugby player. I can swear with the best of them, but I did feel almost like I was being leered at. Anyway, I went to open the door at the end. It wouldn't open, and I'm pushing it, pulling it, everything. It would not move. And so I had to go back through the whole sort of workhouse to get back to the sort of reception area, so to speak. And I said, I think that door's locked. She wandered over there with me, and she looked, she went, it's not, and just opened it, and it opened straight away. And I had stood there for a good 5 minutes, pulling, pushing, checking the lock, everything.
Yeah. I was explaining to you as well on Facebook today that we had the exact same experience on Friday, just gone.
Yeah.
Some of the team, because we arrive earlier than the guests, obviously, to set up, and I always get given the keys to the building because we get trusted with the building, basically, and I lock up as we go. Now, the team came all the way through to the workhouse because we go right past the vagrant cells into, you might have seen a room with big old pine tables in, and that's our welcome room.
Right.
So we were in there setting up, and the team come in, and this says, Rosie, you're going to have to go and unlock the toilets because we can't get in to go to the toilet. So I thought to myself, there's no lock on the toilets. So I went all the way back with them just in case they'd put a lock on the door. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a lock on the door, and the door opened straight away.
Yeah.
Got in, and they were like, the door were locked. I'm telling you, I'm not joking, the door were locked.
Mm. Yeah, well, say I've been there in the vagrants block bit, so I can, yeah. I think the lady there thought I was mad, and I said I can't open the door, and she said, did you pull it? I said I pulled it, I pushed it. I actually checked that I was opening it on the right bit, that there wasn't a handle I had to turn and pull, and yeah, it wouldn't shift. So whether like you say, it could have been Stan didn't want me to leave, or he was just, someone was having a laugh with me, I don't know, but that was the bit when I went round I didn't like, the vagrant bit. I didn't spend that long in there. I felt quite, as I say, I just felt like I was being leered at in there.
I have to admit, I do feel a little bit uneasy walking down there in the middle of the night because it's so dark down there.
Yeah.
And when you look in the cells, they're even darker. So you can't see much when you're walking down, and then you look in the cells and you're thinking, do I really want to go in that cell? It's so dark. But we do have some guests who come with us every single time to this location because they've had so much happen in themselves, and they're kind of addicted. They've convinced themselves they've got, friends, spirit friends in the cells. So they come just to, I want to catch up with my spirit friends. Yeah. And, they've been with us, for the last 18 months, come every single time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, believe it or not, we've been chatting for just over half an hour, guys.
Wow.
I know. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. I'm not just saying that I hope to come on one of your investigations. I genuinely do, because it's somewhere like Ripon absolutely intrigues me, and it's interesting that some of the experiences I've had, you guys can verify at night. They can be even more extreme, I suppose. If anyone wants to look at the investigations that Rosie and Stuart's company, Simply Ghost Nights, do, go to their webpage, simplyghostnights.co.uk. You can find them on Facebook as well. They're brilliant at answering their messages, so if you've got any questions, do feel free to message them. But this is me saying thank you ever so much, Stuart and Rosie, for talking to me. I really, really appreciate it. Where have you got coming up next? Where are you investigating next?
Cannon Hall this Saturday and Gresley Hall Friday.
Okay.
And then it's Edinburgh a week of Saturday.
Whoa.
The Blair Street Vaults, and then Hull Funeral Parlour 2nd of June.
So a lot of very different places coming up if you're interested. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you again. This has been Penny G. Morgan of Haunted Histories. Thank you for listening. If you want to listen to any of our other shows, please do go to our Spreaker page, Parasearch UK Radio, and you can listen to all of the shows. And remember, if you have had any experiences in any of the places we're talking about, please do let us know. And that just leaves one thing for me to say is goodbye, sleep tight, and don't worry about things that go bump in the night.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.